Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Have you ever found yourself inside of your career feeling a little stuck, a little dispassionate, and overwhelmed by the demands of your clinic patients, but not sure what is next for you? Today's guest, Dr. Jennifer Harrington, is going to share about a period of time where she felt like the needs of her underserved rural population were bringing her to the brink of burnout, and what she did to find her next passion, to step into and to pursue something that reignited her fire of compassion and passion for healthcare and serving her local and global community. Without further ado, here she is, Dr. Jennifer Harrington. Dr. Harrington, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to get into this conversation, but before we start, if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself to our listeners, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Harrington, and I have been a PA for 25 years. I started out in rural medical care in Jellicoe, Tennessee, did that for about 10 years and got into education. So for the past 15 years, I've been in PA education, and right now I serve as a program director for a PA program in California.
Awesome. I would love to hear more about that career transition and how you sort of knew you were ready to make a switch out of clinical medicine and into academia. I think this is something that a lot of listeners are curious about, and they're like, how do I get from here to there exactly?
I always had a passion for education. For one thing, I always enjoyed patient education, and I was offered the opportunity to work at a local PA program. Not the one that I'm at now, but years ago. And I really enjoyed, I found out that after teaching for a short amount of time, like that was my true passion, and just the ability to help students to go out and have those aha moments and then be able to care for patients. So to date, I have trained almost 1,500 certified PAs.
Wow, that is so incredible to think about that impact of you teaching them, and then even further than that, them impacting all of those patient visits. That must feel so rewarding.
It definitely does.
Yeah. So tell us more about your work in advocacy and what you do in terms of outreach and the contributions that you're making to the community.
So the area that I really focus on is another one of my passions, and it's serving underserved patients. And I was really fortunate to have an opportunity to have a professor in college who took a group of us to Malaysia to do medical mission trip in the different villages there. And I always said I'm going to go back and do something like that. And most recently, in the past, for the past 10 or 15 years, I've actually been doing trips, but most recently I developed a nonprofit so I could take students on medical mission trips to different countries. I have one planned actually later this month in Peru. And the goal of that nonprofit is to take certified PAs and licensed medical providers and match them up with students so they get the mentorship through that. So they really learn how to care for patients in need.
Cool. So do you have a number on how many trips you've taken?
I think it's almost, it's under 20 total. I think it's between 15 and 20. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's a lot of trips to a lot of different parts of the world, I'm sure. How cool. Awesome. So in this capacity as both a professor, educator, as a program director, as someone who sounds like they're doing a lot of things in terms of managing this nonprofit, organizing these trips, and supporting these students with organizing mentorship. Have you ever experienced burnout where you've just felt overwhelmed by the tasks that you have to do?
I think the time that I got close, I don't know that I've ever experienced true burnout, but the time that I got closest was I practiced rural medicine, and in the area that I practiced, the level of narcotic abuse was very high. And I think the closest to burnout I experienced was just the frustration of having to deal with that in the day today, and just not wanting to even go to work and deal with like trying to play lie detector and figure out if this patient really needs pain medication. Are they trying to get it to sell it? I've worked with several doctors who got in trouble for giving out narcotics that patients later sold. So it was a very real and almost scary thing, and it impacted the way the way I felt going into work every day, the way I felt toward my patients, and it wasn't a good place to be.
I was so excited to hear that AAPA has upgraded their signature job board, PA Job Source, into an interactive, map-based system that allows you to literally zoom into your targeted geographic region and communicate directly with PA employers. The PA Job Source map connects you to the entire landscape of PA jobs. They've got 50,000 PA employers and counting. You can follow a geographic market or employer site and receive alerts when new jobs are posted. You can even send a DM to that employer you've had your eye on for months. But here's the best news. PA Job Source is still completely free to AAPA members. Log in today to map out your future at aapa.org/PAJobSource. The thing about practicing medicine is that we think as a student, we think we have to know the differential diagnosis, we have to know the multiple choice question, we have to be able to accurately diagnose someone based on symptoms and presentation. But it's so much more nuanced than that in terms of making sure that we're practicing evidence-based medicine, making sure that we're practicing defensive medicine, making sure that we're serving that patient. And there's a lot to think about in terms of that encounter. And when you're in a situation like that, I would think it would be even harder to do the medical decision making if you're also dealing with the concern about my license and your safety and what's going to happen to these medications after I give them to you. So what did you do during that season where you weren't feeling, excited about going into work, where you were kind of dreading these interactions? What did you do to take care of yourself, and how did you get out of that mindset?
I think around that time is where I found my next passion in really in nutrition and taking care of body and self. And I think that's what helped me catapult me through that to where I didn't experience burnout to the level that I hear others talk about. But exercise, sleep, community was a very big, friendship community, spiritual community, all of that I think has a huge impact. And then nutrition. I started delving into nutrition, and I got so excited about some of the evidence-based studies that I feel like we did not end up learning in PA school. Some students might learn them, but I didn't have that opportunity in my school. But there's so much out there that we have as tools that we can do these things every day to prevent and help burnout, as well as prevent diseases of all cause.
Yeah. I can remember very clearly as a student, we did talk about lifestyle modifications, but we talked about them in general in terms of what's the first line treatment for any disease. Number 1 bullet, lifestyle modifications. Number 2 bullet, surgery, medicine, intervention, right? But no one was talking about how to get people to do these lifestyle modifications, how to increase compliance, how to get them the information for what ones they should be doing. And also, you're in a 15-minute visit with an established patient. How do you get that person to build new habits and eat different things and exercise and sleep and, get in community? That's a tall order for a 15-minute visit with the 99204 billing code for someone who has multiple diagnoses. So can you give us any tips in terms of, lifestyle modifications, both integrating them into our own lives, but also how we can start to bridge that gap for our patients?
I think the first thing that's really important is patients have a hard time listening to you if they see kind of that hypocritical kind of nature. So if you're telling them to do something, if I told them to quit smoking and I was smoking, patients wouldn't want to listen to me, right? So same way with nutrition and exercise and sleep and taking care of yourself. So if patients can see you doing it, they're more likely to be receptive. And then I think the next thing, the thing that's really helped me, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist at times, but I realize that with patients, you have to start where they are. And although ideally I'd like them to do this big laundry list of things, if they are able to do one thing on the list, or if they're, able to get rid of their Mountain Dew and start drinking water and, just something simple like that, then that's a win for them. And then I can also celebrate that win, regardless of the other things that they're doing that may be still on that list of things that I'd like them to work on.
Sure. And do you find that would you schedule them for short-term follow-up? Because I think that's the other thing that we're like, hey, you're coming in every 6 months to a year. I'd like you to modify your lifestyle. See you in January. That you're like, I don't really know how it's going, and I'm not really going to support you along the way because we only see you twice a year.
So the funny thing about where I practice medicine is I was in a rural area in a small town. So it almost seemed like patients went to the clinic sometimes as something to do. So I did schedule follow-up with these patients that was short term on different things that we'd be working on. But often I would, bump into them downtown. They'd come in for another reason. They'd come in with family. It was a small family practice, came in with grandma or their kids. So I saw them frequently and developed those relationships. And I think around those relationships comes additional conversations and additional ways to encourage patients.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Earlier, when you were talking about lifestyle modifications and some of the great evidence we have for these modifiable risk factors, right? We can't change our genetics. We can't sometimes change the part of the country that we live in or our own disposition to certain, diseases, but we can change what we're eating, how we're moving, how we're sleeping, that community and connection piece. I was just watching the Blue Zones documentary on Netflix in the last couple of weeks. And so many of those pieces, they're saying, hey, it's not that these 100-year-olds are doing calisthenics, right? It's that they live in a place where they do lots of walking. It's that they live in community with others and that they have really rich relationships. I have found working in healthcare, it's so interesting because when you meet someone in healthcare, you feel this immediate kinship, like, oh, you too have been collectively traumatized by the healthcare system. and we can bond over that. But also there have been seasons where I've been working in an office where I felt very isolated, where I'm the only provider there on a regular basis. I know there are other people in my community who are working in medicine, but I struggle to connect with them or struggle to really form deep relationships with them. Do you have any tips for the person listening who's like, yeah, community and connection sounds great. It's something I'm missing. How do I build that in my life?
So I would just say, look for that one person with a connection to start. I think we need a big friend group, but sometimes just starting with one person that you have something in common with to discuss, to meet, to have lunch with, to talk about concerns that you have, just to get things off your chest is, that's the great place to start.
Dreading one more shift, one more day, seeing one more patient? What if that dread isn't simply anxiety and fear, but rather the bubbling up of underlying resentment that you are underpaid, disrespected, marginalized, overwhelmed, and your schedule, quite frankly, sucks? I'm a clinician negotiation coach, and I help providers like you to land the biggest raises of their career. It's super simple. Here's how it works. You book your 1-hour call in which we discuss your current compensation, what your specific goals are, and create a personalized plan. You'll hang out with a strategic plan for how to land a bigger paycheck, a better schedule, and blocked admin time. Life is too short to constantly feel that resentment, to be insulted by your pay, and to continue to have that crappy schedule. A negotiation consultation will help you to understand your value, feel confident about the conversations you need to have, and have the gumption to finally earn what you are worth. I have dedicated slots on my calendar for negotiation calls each week. Would you like one of those calls to be yours? The link in the show notes is the fastest way to get that booked. Yeah, I think that sometimes that whole, everyone else seems to have a diverse network of 20 people feels overwhelming. So we don't start because we're like, well, 20 new friends is too many new friends, right? 20 new connections is too many. But if you can find one that's relatable and, accessible to you, and sometimes that's in person, but sometimes that's on the internet. Like we can connect with people who are not physically in the same space as we are. And that could be great too.
Very true.
Yeah. So in all of this, tell me about your routine or your habits for taking care of yourself while you're planning these mission trips and running this program, all of the things that you're doing. How do you make sure that you're getting what you need?
So there are a few things I do for exercise every day. And I would say every day, meaning most days of the week. If I have something going on, maybe it doesn't happen. But one of them is every morning I do a Tabata workout or something similar to that. And that fortunately, those type of workouts are more bang for your buck. So you could get 15 or 20 minutes in and do them at home where I don't have to drive to the gym. And it's very quick and very powerful. And I find that to be really invigorating to help my brain get going in the mornings, to get everything started. And then the other thing I do, and this kind of is a little bit of community and a little bit of exercise and a little bit of getting in nature. We live in a rural area, so almost every evening I have a loop around my neighborhood that's a 1 mile loop, and we walk past cows and mountains and just nice, it's a nice area. So my husband and I will walk and talk and just enjoy nature each evening. So that's very decompressing at the end of the day.
Sure. Yeah. I have found that these resources that we have that are inherently limited, time, money, energy, how we spend those things has such a profound impact on how we show up in other places. And that when we're spending time and energy, particularly on things that give us more energy, that can be, an upward spiral in terms of I do these energy giving activities and then I feel more energetic for the other things that I have to do in my life.
Mm-hmm. And I would say the other thing that I've really done this with my family, with my husband, is planning for nutrition and creating new habits where they weren't there before. And the new habits have become a lifestyle. So for example, we have a habit of going grocery shopping on Sunday and preparing a lot of meals for the week. And one of the things we do is make a really good salad. And when I say good salad, I mean like it's got the, cruciferous vegetables and beans and seeds and nuts and lettuce and the rainbow of vegetables and in it. And we pack those for the week so that every weekday you have a salad for lunch and it's ready. During the week, I'm too busy to think of doing that. So that's created a new habit for my husband and I, my kids, to just have those types of foods ready. It makes it easier.
Sure. Yeah. Anything we can do in advance with that prefrontal cortex where we're planning, in the ideal version of ourselves and then executing as we go along tends to be better choices, healthier things for us, for sure. Now, to the person who's listening who is curious about the actual evidence of these studies, of things, of these like lifestyle modifications, what are some good things to search or where can we find stuff if we're like, hey, there's a whole lot of information on the internet about what's good, what's bad, what we should be doing. And a lot of it is conflicting. How can I find the real evidence of what habits and what nutrition and what exercise are the most efficacious?
That's a really good question. And I often struggle with that same thing. What I like to do is I'm a little bit of a Netflix documentary junkie. So things like the Blue Zone diet, I'll watch things like that, but then I don't take it, for granted until I start looking at the research behind it. So then I get on PubMed and I start researching looking at some of the art. Were these studies actually valid? Were they things that are applicable to patients and are good studies. And there are some really good studies out there. There are a few books that you can read, and I'm also a book junkie, so I have a lot of nutrition books that they cite a lot of the articles, and I think there's also a lot of books that will go on opinion, and there's no articles and there's no research. So being really careful that you're reading the books that are citing the articles, and then looking up those articles. Are they, was it done on 10 people, or was that study done on a couple thousand people? Makes a big difference.
Yeah. One resource I have found on that is there's a website called nutritionfacts.org, which is a nonprofit, which has a lot of great information. If you're like, I have a patient that's asking me about soy, right? Or like, I'm curious about soy. Like, what do the studies actually tell us about it? Is it good for breast cancer? Is it bad for breast cancer? Is there hormones? Like all of these things that if you have a resource that you can reference, like, hey, here's some resources relative to that if you find a few as unbiased as they can be sources that have good scientific evidence, that those can become your go-to sources, and that also you can, refer patients to those.
Yes, absolutely. So as a provider, I highly recommend the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They have some great materials, and they have teaching materials that PA schools can use for free. And then they have lots of courses and conferences and certificates that they give people on that.
Yeah. I find this movement of providers who have been in the trenches, have been seeing patients, and feel frustrated with this position of reaction, that we wait for patients to get diabetes, hypertension, obesity. And then once they have a diagnosis, we start to talk to them about lifestyle choices or modifications that they can make. Can you explain to us how lifestyle medicine is different than sort of traditional medicine in terms of we wait for your hemoglobin A1C to bump and then we talk to you about diet and exercise, or then we talk to you about lifestyle?
It's just, in my mind, it's the smart way to do things. You can, like you said, wait till you get diabetes, or you could say, hey, I'm at risk because of my family genetics and factors. So let's make some proactive changes today and prevent these, prevent myself from getting diabetes. And there's actually a lot of really good evidence out there. And I don't think it even existed when I went to PA school, but the epigenetics data that's out there that shows, you don't have to be obese. You can turn off the obesity gene. You could turn off some of the genetics by making the right choices. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. And I think it's encouraging to patients who are like, well, my whole family's big, I'm going to end up with diabetes. Instead of living in that, doom and gloom kind of attitude, it's that proactive attitude. Like, I can do something about this, and I will.
Sure. Yeah. And couple that with studies that show sort of how and what to do. And patients will walk out of your office feeling a lot more empowered that this is not like, here's your diagnosis and your prescription, but rather, hey, here's what we're working with, and here's what you can do to actually impact the course of this disease or your longevity or prosperity. It just feels so much more hopeful to be like, hey, we don't always have good news, but when we have bad news, here is some good news to go with it, or here are some things that you can do to actually impact your, future health and the way that these things are, expressing themselves inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to find out more, to follow you, to support your nonprofit, could you tell us where are all the places that they can go to connect with you on the internet?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, so I post a lot of my, if I'm doing a nonprofit mission trip or anything like that, I'll post on LinkedIn. And then we don't have a web page, but we have a Facebook page, and the organization where I take the medical outreach trips is Called to Serve. So Called to Serve Global Medical Outreach.
Awesome. And we will link that group in the show notes so that if anyone wants to join and, potentially contribute to or go on a mission trip in the future, that they'll know how to get connected with you.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today and for sharing about all of these wonderful things. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to meet you and you're kind of a little bit famous in the PA world. So this is exciting to me too.
If you have been listening for any number of episodes, you know that I love any conversation that reminds us that there are modifiable risk factors inside of our own lives, lifestyle modifications that we can make, that we can also encourage our patients to make, that will make us to be healthier, happier, more vibrant people, and that as more vibrant people, we can show up differently in the world. I hope that this episode inspired you to take better care of yourself and also to look outward to your community and around the world to see how you can serve others. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to another episode of The PA is In. That's all for today. This PA is out. Congratulations. You've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.